Should be streaming to both.
I'm checking now. Twitch looks good. Testing audio. Yep, both going and audio looks good. What do you need on the build server, Johnny? And hold on a second. All right, so everything looks good. We are live, and welcome everyone to the Foolish Tech Show. It's Wednesday, 2 p.m. Eastern, and we're here to provide support for our software and services, or answer any questions you may have. And yeah, otherwise we're going to fill our time with random tech news and whatever goes on in the chat. If you want to join our IRC chat, you can jump over to foolishtechshow.com or foolishit.com/live and join our chat there, and you can talk with us. Looks like we got Phoenix in there already, dropping a whole bunch of links. So I had a couple that I wanted to go over before we get to any of those, and then we'll probably have Phoenix on to talk some security stuff about encryption and keeping passwords safe and various things like that. But first, I wanted to talk about this one. So there's a new crypto ransomware out there called Jigsaw, and what it does is it deletes your files the longer you wait to pay it.
Oh, that's cruel. Oh, that's bad.
Yeah. So if you don't pay it immediately or within a certain time span, this Jigsaw crypto ransomware will begin to delete your files as it takes longer and longer. So definitely look out for that one. Not a cool thing. And then there's a new variant of Qbot out there, and Qbot is yeah, that's definitely why you make sure you back up your stuff, and that's should be a known fact now for all ransomware. It'll be great if ransomware actually forces people to start doing backups and maintaining them correctly. Like, that's what it took to find, like, we've had backups since we had computers, and it finally took people getting their stuff ransomed to...
Is this the solution to get people to back up?
Yeah, yeah. It'll be, I mean, that'll be the one good thing that's come of ransomware, I think. Anyway, Qbot is the malware that was actually stealing your data after or before encrypting it. So there's a new variant of that out there to be on the lookout for. And then this is one that just create a backup ransomware. Yeah, that's the other thing, is making sure your backups don't get encrypted, because some of the ransomware do that. So you have to have offsite and offset backups. But Phoenix had mentioned this one also, and that was one that I was going to mention. Is there is a new site that helps you ID what ransomware you've been hit with. So that's pretty neat, and it looks like you can upload the text file that it sends you, as well as a sample file that was encrypted, and then it'll try to tell you if it knows which ransomware is there. I would hope it would even go so far as, hey, you got Petya, there's been a decryption for it. So hope it would do that, but I haven't tested that site out, but there's a lengthy Ghack review of it there. So, and another one that Phoenix had posted here that's related is this one, which is a blog post about easy to boot and using WinPE to launch the Petya extractor. So the basically keygen that they'd created for the Petya malware. You can actually run that through easy to boot and then WinPE and then get your files back off that system. So very handy for people doing tech support, I would think. And one other really interesting one before we get into our security topic is Squatting Dog did a video demo of the dUninstaller LabTech plugin that he does. So if you're using LabTech and you haven't checked out the Squatting Dog development dUninstaller plugin, or you haven't checked out dUninstaller, definitely check that out there and see what all you can do. It's pretty nice and neat that he integrated that, and we support his development and approve. So check it out and get it if you like it. All right, I think that's all for the ransomware and whatnot sites. Did y'all have any other big important things you wanted to get to before we go to a security topic discussion? You're muted, Proctor.
I have a non-tech related thing.
Okay.
Led Zeppelin is being sued by a band who says that their Stairway to Heaven introduction was actually ripped off from them.
Oh wow.
Here's the link, and it looks like it's. I've listened to it, and the song they're talking about came out 2 years before Stairway to Heaven, and it sounds just like it.
Wow.
That's the link about the news story, and here's the link to the song they say was ripped off. It's from a band called Spirit. The name of the song was Taurus.
I wonder if they're
familiar.
Are they suing the current copyright owner, or because I mean
the remaining band members?
So isn't it just two people? One person?
Well,
sure.
I don't know.
I thought it was just
alive, but John Bonham, man.
No, Robert Plant's alive.
Yeah, Jim Pay's alive. John Paul Jones alive. Last I checked.
Oh.
And it's the estate of the guitarist from the band Spirit is who is suing them.
And yes, I know the bass player's name.
Interesting.
Who else?
I did my senior project on Led Zeppelin.
And he's not just a bass player. Then you know. Almost like most talented person in the band is like the least known. That's just. I was just talking about that the other day. That's why I was like.
Interesting.
I mean, usually, if you're not the front man, you're just, and then everybody knows the front man. If you get a guitarist or a singer, everybody knows a guitarist or a singer. Some people know the drummer sometimes, depending on the band and the showmanship, and usually.
I did not learn about all of that.
Well, that's just my observations.
Well, that is one band that I do respect, that they never got back together after they lost one of the original members. I think that's...
Well, they did, actually. With his son.
Really?
Yeah, they did a couple concerts with him. They did one in in the late 90s or early 2000s or something. It was horrible. I don't remember. Early 90s, I'm sorry. It was horrible, and they weren't going to do it again, and then they did it again in the last 5 years or so.
Yeah, well, I was talking more of like
Celebration Day, they came out with a DVD.
They didn't replace the band member with a new one and try to keep going.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Then you don't have like, yeah, well, and Metallica and that other band, Pink Floyd. So like you're like, oh, well, I like Pink Floyd during this singer. I don't like them during this singer. Like, I hate when that happens.
Yeah, but Pink Floyd was different. Sid Barrett didn't die.
I know he got committed, so they couldn't have him there. But they replaced him with someone, and then
they did completely different music. So
they should have just
way
changed
completely
the name of the
different.
band. Then you wouldn't have people saying, "Oh, I like Sid."
I don't think the Sid Barrett Pink Floyd was ever popular to begin with until way after the fact, though. So
It may have been. I just know that's one of the big people debates that I've run across in music talks.
Oh well, yeah.
People are like, "Oh, I don't like Pink Floyd with Waters. I like it with blah." It's like
Well, that was one album. What is there to like? I mean, how much of it is there? Really.
yeah. Well, he came out with a second album here recently, I believe. We were talking about that last year.
What? Hey, who?
The Sid guy.
No, I thought he was dead now.
Oh yeah, he is dead. I don't know.
Good thing their sense of humor didn't make it to their music.
There was something. One of the guys, maybe it was Roger Walters, came out with a solo album last year. Somebody came out with a.
Probably so. Roger Waters, he's not good.
Somebody did something. So
he's the one. He's the reason why Pink Floyd isn't Pink Floyd. He anymore. He just got kind of crazy, and the last album that Pink Floyd did under Pink Floyd's name is crap, and it's like all him, even though their names are on it. They didn't do anything with it. And they just separated. So he's been doing albums ever since. Actually, he's been doing world tours. He does all the time.
there was somebody that wasn't making albums that came out and started making albums. Was there a third singer for Pink Floyd?
Well, David Gilmour was the second one. I mean, but David Gilmour and Roger Waters both sang. So
I don't know.
they both sang and both played guitar, and they both wrote songs.
Yeah, Endless River 2014.
Yeah, I mean the last album that they did with Roger Waters, and that was the final cut. It's horrible.
Maybe this Endless Waters was the one that I was thinking of. Because that's weird that Pink Floyd just came out with a new album. But it was just.
Yeah, Roger Waters got he got in trouble some while back, like a couple years ago for flying the Pink Floyd pig, and I don't remember. In Germany or something. I don't remember. Pink Floyd pig had like a Nazi symbol on it or something. Yeah, hammers. I don't remember. Maybe that was it. Maybe not. Oh, it had a pecker on it at one point. A giant pecker.
I got to see the flying pig at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in Cleveland.
Awesome. Cool.
Yeah, they were doing a Pink Floyd thing that day. Yes, apparently in Nick's house that is the appropriate word that can be said by children.
What?
I don't want to repeat it, but if you check our office chat, we had to talk about that while we were at your house.
What? Huh? I just said that.
I know. That's.
You don't want to. Oh, yeah. That's right. We haven't talked about that at my house.
Yeah, we did, because remember you and Jade were like yelling it out in front of the kids and even having the kids repeat it, and then me and Johnny were like, is that really a appropriate word for it? Or?
Oh gosh, that is so funny. I was actually just talking about that word last night, and I was saying that more people should use that word more often.
Yeah.
Because we drove past the restaurant Dirty Dick's.
Yeah.
And I just thought, why don't they use the other word?
Because his name is Richard that owned it and started it, I believe.
I don't think so.
Well, that it's a play on words for the name of that restaurant. It's not actually just called that.
Well, yeah, but they could still use Dirty Packer.
That wouldn't be a play on words anymore. It's like Dick is supposed to be the name of a person,
Yeah.
and he's dirty, not
How about
whatever
Peter?
else you're
Wouldn't
thinking.
be a pun anymore. I guess you could
How
go.
how about Peter?
You could go with Peter if you wanted to do that. But all right, well, we are divulging here, so oh, RTM Tech posted a thing about when the Pink Floyd Inflatable Pig broke free. That was probably a fun concert. I remember my mom left me at home when she went to see Pink Floyd. I was very upset. All right, well, I'm gonna get Phoenix in here so we can talk about the security software stuff. And while we wait for him to join, I'll post some other interesting things that I found here. I thought this was a pretty funny video. This brothers and a mother convinced their sister/daughter that there was a real zombie apocalypse happening after she went and got her wisdom teeth pulled. So she's all doped up on drugs and ends up getting out and getting in the car, and like he had a tape recording of the National Broadcast Alert System like play while they were talking, and then he had his mom call and like he put her on speakerphone and they talked about the National Broadcast Alert, and then they went back home and like started getting supplies and stuff to fight the zombies off with. It was pretty funny. The best part was he asked her, he said, "We can only take one animal. Do you want to take the dog or the cat?" And she was like, "The cat, of course." Hey, Phoenix. Oh, no mic sound from you yet.
Oh.
Now we got you.
Oh, okay.
How's it going?
Good. How are you?
Good.
Cool.
Very good. One more interesting link to throw out here real quick, just because it was super fun. So this has to be the best pop-up book that I've ever seen. It's a Transformers pop-up book, and they actually have the pop-ups transform into robots. Proctor, you unmuted to cough.
The button wasn't working properly. Sorry. It's giving me a hard time.
But yeah, check out that pop-up book. That's like that's the coolest way I've ever seen pop-ups done. Like normally you just have the thing like popping up and doing something. This one like actually transforms into robots. That's pretty awesome.
That's pretty neat.
All right, so let's talk about security stuff.
Cool.
Let's see. So I want to start off first with password managers, because I feel like that's one of the biggest security benefits that people can do right now. Like encrypted messaging, I know has its time and place. Encrypting documents and folders and things of that place have their time and place, but everybody uses passwords. So I would think passwords would be one of the biggest topics to start off with. And I use Keepass in a couple different ways, and I'm willing to go into some of the details on that. Phoenix, what do you use?
I used to use LastPass, and then once Steve Gibson said that, oh, hey, there's this, well, I saw it before he mentioned it, and then before, the recovery vulnerability. Then the database got leaked a little bit, but not breached. But I used to use LastPass, but now I use Keepass.
Okay, so you've switched over to that one as well.
Yep.
I like that one because it's basically open source and you store everything on your computer and you can handle it how you want. There is a nice program that Nick actually introduced me to where you can store your databases and key files and things of that nature on one of several cloud services. So that makes it so you could actually have it in the cloud and accessible from your phone. Yeah, and I used to not really like password managers. What I would actually used to do is I would come up with a long passphrase and then use that passphrase for every site I had, and then I would adjust like the end of it. So per site, I would adjust how the end of that passphrase would end. And I still think that actually works just as well. If you don't want to use a password manager and set up things like that, or you think that's a security risk, having a long passphrase that's the same for every site and then adding a little bit of to the end that separates each site so that each one has a different one, but it's easy to remember. Because if you type the same thing in over and over for every single password, you're going to remember that long passphrase. And then if it's a little bit different for each site, like you can just add one letter. So for like Twitter, you could just add a T. Facebook, you can add an F or FB or however you want to do it. That would change that password for each one, so it's not cracked for each one. You may want to keep in mind and kind of switch up depending on how secure you want it to be, if you want it to be in the front or in the middle or in the end. But I still think that's a good route to go because, with that, you can easily come up with a 15 to 20 character password that's easy to remember. You can apply it to all your sites and still say relatively secure that way, especially if you enable two-factor auth. But if you if you want to use really long, crazy, complicated, random passwords, then password manager is the only route to go. How do you use your Keepass if you want to get into that, Phoenix?
Well, I usually store it in a VeraCrypt container, with AES, Twofish, and AES Serpent, and then AES 256 with Serpent, and then I mount it in the VeraCrypt volume, and then I keep that offsite just in case something happens, and then I just keep it local. So I actually use it with my YubiKey that I have. So I generated a 63 character long password with Steve Gibson's random password generator. Mm-hmm. And then I use that with as long as the YubiKey plus VeraCrypt to mount it, and then use the 63 character password. So it's.
So do you use the same one for the VeraCrypt and then the?
No, I usually use two different passwords. One for my volume plus a couple key files, so it's like two-factor authentication, and then my other password on my YubiKeys. So it's
that makes it pretty difficult to get to your password quickly.
And plus with the key files is that they don't know what they are, and plus even if they got the password, they would still need the key, the two key files. So.
Well, I don't go to the extent of encrypting it a second time. I rely on the Keepass's encryption, and on my desktop, I actually use the one-time password plugin, and I use that with my YubiKey. So I have the password to log into the Keepass, and then the one-time plugin going with my YubiKey, and then that has to generate 3 codes in succession to be able to open that. So I opt for that versus the key file on my computer. On the mobile side, I have it set up to have the key file in a separate password than what I use on my computer. and I end up just copying and pasting files or new passwords and things I set up over to that one there. So at any time, if my cloud ones get compromised, I just go through and change all the ones on my desktop and don't copy and paste them to there, or set up a new one and change all my passwords. So so I kind of have those two separated. So I don't like storing things in the cloud like that, giving another company access to all of my data, even if they have to decrypt it and get key files from a separate online thing. It just worries me having someone having that much control over it. So I prefer to maintain control here. The only reason I don't do the VeraCrypt stuff is because really I haven't found a need of anything else to be double layer encrypted like that. What's your reasoning behind doing the VeraCrypt thing behind it, or just to add an extra level of security?
Just an extra level of security, because half my friends are IT friends. They're like, "Ooh, what's that?" And I've got hacked before, and it's like, because basically I was a victim. Well, my information got leaked in the OPM hack. So basically, I got notified saying, "Hey, your information got compromised," and we all know how that turned out when they testified, saying that, "Oh yeah, we don't use encryption." So,
Yeah, that's why I don't put my stuff in other people's hands.
Yeah, or even in the cloud. It's too dangerous.
Yeah, but so the other side of that though is, do you know of any vulnerabilities or anything in Keepass's encryption method and setup, how they lock things? I was under the impression that they were fairly secure there.
Yeah, I think I haven't seen anything on the internet about Keepass. I mean, there probably is security researchers that may find like a bug or something, but I haven't found anything. But I know LastPass is not. I mean, it's secure if you use VeraCrypt and stuff like that, but I wouldn't use it.
Well, I don't trust LastPass anymore.
No. Keepass may have a glitch, but
first came out, but they've had too many breaches and too much issues that I'm not in tune for that. So, Proctor, do you have any opinion on password managers or setups?
I've been using Zoho Vault, which is in the cloud online. But I'm thinking about switching to LastPass.
To LastPass?
I'm sorry. I got the wrong. Yeah, Keepass. I'm sorry. Get all these passes mixed up.
Yeah, that is kind of they all use the same name styling. It's like, I know what you do. Just name yourself something different. Like, I would prefer it be called Incredibly Secure or something like that.
Or better than LastPass or something.
Better than LastPass.
No, just drop the pass stuff. Drop the passwords. Like, you don't need to have that in the name of it.
But you mentioned some apps to access Keepass from your phone.
Yep.
What are they?
So there's two different ones. The one I'm currently using is Keepass to Android.
Okay, yeah, that wouldn't help me.
Oh yeah.
He's on an iPhone.
I'm a dude.
Let's see. I think I got that one, or I think Nick might have recommended that one, but I think on their page they have some listings of it. Let me get their page pulled up here. We'll go ahead and link to Keepass while we're here too.
Yeah,
so
mini Keepass.
Out. Yeah, so on their download page they have a list to a lot of different ones. The one I was originally using was the Keepass Droid, and that one didn't have any access to online storage. It only used the local phone storage. So you may want to try out a few of those iPhone ones and see what they have for options and abilities, because they probably are all very different. I actually haven't tried out the Keepass Mob or Keep Share, so I may end up checking those out as well.
If you're using these third-party utilities to access your passwords, isn't that giving that third party access to your passwords, or is it encrypted in between?
It depends. So I think with these, you want to check and see if they're open source. So like the Keepass to Android is a open source one, so you can go through and review all of the code that it uses and does. Let me see if the original one I was using was open source. Looks like it may be. Let me just double check here. Yeah, so that one's open source as well. So that would be the biggest thing I would look for in those, but you are correct. You would want to be wary about those because they're not official contributions. However, being on their download page would lean me a little bit more towards trusting them.
Yeah.
Because Keepass is fairly reliable, and I would imagine they wouldn't just throw links up there just because someone said, "Hey, I support you, and by the way, I steal all of your users' data while you do it."
Yeah.
They would probably try to stay away from that. So definitely do your research on those. But the desktop version I haven't had any issues with, and I want to say I'm actually using the Pro version.
Yeah, I was just wondering what the difference between the Classic and the Pro is.
Yeah. So the Pro version, and they got a comparison, so I'll just be able to tell you for sure. They're both free and both have active development. Pro version has full Unicode support, enhanced high DPI support. Can log in with your user account and one-time passwords using a plugin. And basically just a few more options, it looks like. So that may be... I don't see why you wouldn't go for the Pro version.
I guess the only drawback is it requires .NET Framework 2.0 or higher, but I think everyone probably has that installed already anyway.
That looks like the biggest thing is it does require .NET installed, so that may hold back some people. So yeah, I really like it, and as Phoenix already mentioned, having a YubiKey works really well with it. Are you using the static password option for your YubiKey, Phoenix?
Yeah, usually. Sometimes the one password, sometimes the static.
Okay.
A little bit of both.
So I actually do the static password and then a passphrase on top of that. So I'll usually hit the static password and then type a passphrase after that, identifying it as the Keepass side. But then I also have the one-time password. So basically, you would have to have not only the YubiKey but also my passphrase on top of that to be able to get in still. So definitely highly recommend Yubikeys. If y'all haven't checked those out, definitely go do that. We've done another show or two on them before, but I'll go ahead and link to them here.
Yeah, we did a show where Brantley went over setting up the YubiKey too. So if you need some help setting it up, we have a show on that.
Very brief show, but it was pretty good.
Yeah, it was good. I'll dig up the link for that.
Individuals here. I can get the link for that one. I think. Let me see. Yeah, I can search these.
The show on two-factor authentication?
Yep, you already got it?
Yeah, you got it?
I got it here.
Okay.
So here's our link to the two-factor auth. And it looks like we mentioned it in a couple other shows, but that's where we really talked about it a lot there. So Definitely check that episode out if you missed it there. But yeah, they are great products. Highly worth it. As soon as I got into it, I went and got the Yubikey Neo, the full-sized one. Absolutely loved it, and went ahead and got the Nano one just to see what the difference is. Basically, the Nano one just doesn't have the NFC and is way smaller. But I carry my YubiKey around on my keychain and have not had any issues with it at all. And even went out and found this adapter so that I can plug it into my phone easily and use my YubiKey with my phone as well. So super like that. And yeah, just can't talk highly enough about it because there's so much more that I'm not even using the YubiKey for that it can do. So highly recommend checking those out, and setting up two-factor auth if you can for everything is never a bad idea. It's so baffling to me that banks don't have two-factor auth. Like, neither bank that I use, neither their website nor their apps use two-factor authentication. And it's just like, really? What?
Oh.
Like, this is the thing I probably want to keep the most secure is my finances. So
yeah, my bank uses two-factor authentication. Either way, regardless.
What's your bank?
It's a credit union across the street, but yeah, so.
All right. Well, Michael, are you there?
Yeah.
What do you do for passwords? Besides just use trust no one variations.
What do you mean? What do I do? Like in relation to what you guys are talking about?
Are you?
I just use my eidetic memory to store my vast vault of passwords. Yes.
So you memorize all your passwords. Do you do the passphrase with a variation, or?
Yeah, I go for the passphrase idea. It was the best, basically, concept that I thought would work, and that's usually what I go with. Some variation on, usually, I don't know. I mean, it can be whatever. I obviously can't divulge where I pull my phrases from, but yeah.
Sure you can.
No, I mean, that would narrow it down considerably, so it would still be difficult for you to guess, but.
He uses his animals' names. He was like, maybe. Well, I'd like to also point out a different option for those that like to try to memorize things but may not have memorize, is this password card. And it's an interesting idea and setup. And essentially what you can do is you generate a random password card. It fills out with a bunch of numbers and letters, and you can print that out. Now, what I did with that...
Isn't that a little like submitting your password? Here, enter your password here so we can print it out. And isn't that like, here, tell me what your password is so I can harvest it?
Not at all. If you actually look at that page, on the right, you'll see a password card that's been generated. And this is what I was going to say that I did.
Oh, I see what you mean.
Is,
the password card. I'm like, why would you want to have a printer for passwords?
No, but it gives you a really good random character name, and with the default option that they have there, you can just pick a symbol and associate that symbol with whatever site you want to use it for. So you could just use the symbol and just go straight down the column. But you also have the option of just picking out any kind of pattern. So if you wanted to start with this symbol and then go diagonally down, or start with this symbol and then go 4 rows down and then go diagonally and come back up and stuff. So you can mix and match how you want to do it, but basically it gives you a fairly encrypted card to be able to generate your own passwords that you can use just by picking out a pattern, so like a cipher of your own, and then using it that way. I wouldn't recommend just using one column as your password. That wouldn't make the best sense there, because if someone got your password card, then they could just go through each column and try entering your password in. But if you do something like a cipher, that makes it tenfold more difficult. It'd be impossible for you to say, all right, for this site, I use this symbol this many rows down and go diagonally and then zigzag or something like that. So it basically gives you a really good option, and I actually do use that for some of my major sites that if I ever needed to get into, I could be able to get into. And I basically just printed it out and self-laminated it with packing tape. And then I keep that in my wallet. That way, if I don't have my phone, the battery's died, I don't have access to my password generator, I can still get to an important account that I need to be able to get to other passwords or be able to get to the information in those important accounts. They even have iPhone and Android apps, so if you wanted to use the mobile version and not have it in your wallet or something like that, you could do that as well. But I really like it, and like I said, you don't have to use it just with a column. You can use it for a cipher version, and it's, I mean, basically you have billions of different chances to make a password out of that thing, and it makes it kind of easy. So that's how I feel about that. Now, Phoenix, you mentioned VeraCrypt already, and that's the evolution of TrueCrypt. Should people not be using TrueCrypt anymore, or?
Well, I mean, it depends. I mean, Steve Gibson says that, you know, TrueCrypt is still, I mean, the audit still says that there was no major flaws found, but there were some attacks, I think, later on this year that were, you know, mostly were like brute force attempts, stuff like that. But the creator of VeraCrypt found those vulnerabilities and patched those. So now he made a feature called PIM. I forget the name, the long name of it, but basically the iterations that VeraCrypt uses is like much higher than what TrueCrypt uses. So it's much more harder to crack a VeraCrypt volume because the passwords in the header and the master key are generated uniquely and not, you know, it's more, so you can generate more volumes without, you know, running into the same volume with the header key, or it's, you know, more security basically.
Okay.
Same
Now, I thought when I was looking up the difference between the two a while back that the biggest difference I saw was that TrueCrypt could do full disk encryption where VeraCrypt you couldn't. Is that still the case, or did I misread that? Or
Well, now, since VeraCrypt is based off the 7.1 code, which is the last working TrueCrypt version before they went all haywire and quit, you can do file container, full disk, and partition. So you can do the same stuff from TrueCrypt, and you can also create a TrueCrypt volume and mount TrueCrypt volumes in VeraCrypt, and also convert a TrueCrypt volume to a VeraCrypt volume.
okay, so he has, since then he has upgraded it to where now you can do, because that was one of the things when I was looking into it. I was trying to look for a full disk encryption, or doing research basically on full disk encryptions, because that's one of the big things with Windows 10 is the Pro version you get BitLocker automatically enabled. And I was looking into the other options there, because the downside of BitLocker is if you create it with a Microsoft account, that key gets stored on Microsoft servers so that you can recover your hard drive if it, for some reason, you lose your password or you can't get to it or something to that effect. Which, I'm not downing Microsoft on that. Honestly, it's a great idea, because if you're automatically enabling encryption for people, they're going to mess up. They're going to forget their password. They're going to need a recovery. That's why every password thing out there almost has a forgot your password link and reset and password option. It's not a bad idea. I definitely don't down Microsoft or think any security implication or privacy implications on it, other than the fact that if my computer gets confiscated in a raid, they can get around that encryption simply by contacting Microsoft and saying, here's the username, give us the password key, and they have to give them the encryption key.
Yep.
So that's the only downside about it. And to get around that, you would have to have a full disk encryption that counts before your OS loads. And at the time when I was looking at it, TrueCrypt was the only one that could do that. And then even still, you have quite a few things that you have to work around as far as Windows goes. So
Yeah.
good to hear that VeraCrypt has gotten up to that point as well. So I may review or revisit that one and see
Yeah.
setting that up.
I mean, VeraCrypt, especially with the PIM, it's kind of like a pin. So kind of like, I think the default was like 100, and the higher you set it, the longer it takes to hash out. It's basically he created it to stop brute forcing, so it'll take a little bit longer to mount the volume. So basically you can set your PIM to, like, 4,000 or 400,000 if you want, and then the longer it takes, it'll, so basically it just puts off an attacker from, brute forcing your.
Yeah, because it'll take them longer to.
Yeah, it's because you have to guess the PIM, the key file, and your password, so it's like 3 times the authentication. So even TrueCrypt does not have that. I mean, they have the key file and the password, but not a identification PIN, which you can change. So
Futures Tech Ian, sorry, pointed out a Spiceworks article that the biggest thing I saw was Let's Encrypt Beta has exited beta, so Let's Encrypt is now official, so that's awesome. And it also mentions the Jigsaw ransomware, which we had mentioned at the very beginning of the show, Ian. So I think you joined after that, but there's another article if you want to read some more in depth about it. And maybe the Spiceworks one is more in depth about it. I'm not sure exactly, but we had talked about that, and that is pretty shisty of them. I'd also, and it just reminded me, I was reading another article, and I don't have it to mention because it didn't really say much other than what I'm about to tell you, is that we should be on the lookout for the next evolution of ransomware, because essentially ransomware is at the point of the original viruses. So they're basically just sending out viruses and seeing if people install it, and then they deal with it from there. With the hospitals and stuff going, they've started adding up and like targeting specific systems. But the article I was reading was basically saying, watch out, because basically the next evolution from viruses to go to a worm. And essentially what a worm does is it uses that computer to then infect other computers around the area. So that's going to be the next evolution of ransomware, they're saying, is that once a system gets infected, then it's going to try to infect all the other systems that it can contact or reach. So various methods to do that: emails, social networks signed in, network connections, various things like that. So I thought that was an interesting article, and just to think about, that's where things are going to start going, and how much fun that's not going to be once ransomware goes worm.
That will be a nightmare.
Yep.
Because then, like, you have to worry about if someone brings a system in for malware removal.
You have to worry about it infecting the other computers in your shop.
Network. Yeah. So, definitely not cool. It just, when they brought that back up, it brought that back out to me.
It's been a while since there's been a major worm out there.
Yeah. Well, most of the people are focused on making ransomwares because that's where the good money's at. But eventually, someone's going to be like, "Hey, these should be doing this instead, or as well." So yeah. And as Phoenix mentioned, yeah,
backups are key, Phoenix.
Yeah,
But
definitely.
even restoring from backup takes time too, so you have that downtime to deal with too.
Especially like terabytes of data.
yeah.
Yeah.
That's why you're doing tapes. that takes a while.
Yeah.
And
That's why you have
RTM Tech points out that he usually isolates computers for repair, and we kind of did that slightly for systems at the shop that Nick and I worked at the time. But usually it was we'd boot it up first, see what happens, and then we'd shut it down, connect it to the network, and probably do an offline scan before we booted it up live connected to the network. But still, I mean, things could get through that way, and ideally having each one on its own DMZ would be the best way.
Or set up your own VLANs. That'd be the best way.
Oh, and Future Tech Ian posted probably much more in depth, because computer usually goes really in depth on those, about the Jigsaw ransomware. Yeah, they do talk about it a lot more there. Awesome, thanks for that link, Future Tech Ian. It does look like they use a folder deep in local and roaming app data. So you would want to make sure you have the temp protection set on crypto. Wanted to have that, or the local app data deep protection set, so that it would prevent those files from being executed there. And also, if you missed out the other one that we had talked about there, or actually the other two links that we talked about, Ian, is Qbot has a new variant out for that ransomware, and it is the one that steals your data before encrypting it. And then GHacks has a review on a ID ransomware site, which will help you identify which ransomware attacked you. So what is the private XMPP Jabber chat servers that you posted there?
Basically, they're just a list of private chats that you can set up using like Pigeon or mostly Pigeon or Empathy if you're on Linux. I think Trillion. Basically, they're anonymous servers, so you can sign up on, and they're chat servers that keep no logs. Basically, like I use Chaos Computer Club over in Germany because I don't trust onshore chat servers because it's logs and stuff like that. So.
Well, and see, that's what I was about to say. If these are ones that are somebody else's servers set up, I already feel like you're losing out on your encryption or your possible setup there. That I would prefer to set up a XMPP or Jabber server myself, and then enable it and manage the server side.
Or you can use, I think the first one is Calix Institute. Their XMPP server is only made for off the record. So basically, you're keeping the logs because you set up off the record chat, and once the chat's initiated, once it closes, it's gone. So.
Well, I still feel like not being in control of the server side, you don't have much insurance of.
Yeah.
So, like I know that OpenFire is I believe it's a Jabber server that you can set up and maintain for free, and it has the off the record that you can implement as well. But just the fact that you have to implement that on the server side makes me want to stay away from trusting other people's servers. Like if I had to communicate securely with someone, I would probably get a VPN or a VPS and set up my own server and say, you join here and we'll talk securely, or something along those lines.
Yeah.
Because even with, as you mentioned, the other places, WhatsApp enabling encryption by default now. There was another one that NetHunter had pointed out to me, and gosh, if I can't remember the name of it, I think it was Wire.
Yeah. I mean, WhatsApp is owned by Facebook. You know, it's like I don't trust that at all. You know.
Yeah, that.
It's like, you know, it's Facebook. It's their stuff. You know, obviously they say, oh yeah, we don't keep logs. They're full of crap. You know.
That leans me way away from it.
And plus, yeah, Steve Gibson yesterday he did a whole show on WhatsApp, 2 hours. So, you know.
So Wire is the other one that just came out recently, and that's from a co-founder of Skype. And Signal is another highly regarded one. But again, I have a hard time trusting my encryption and security to a third party.
Yeah, it's like that Telegram app too by I forget who makes it, but it's like the instant messenger for like encryption, all similar to WhatsApp, but it's kind of like, you know,
it's just so hard to trust my encryption being brought to something else than my control, I guess.
Yeah,
that's why I don't do the stuff there.
Yeah, well, actually, BitTorrent has a they had it for a while, but it's a I think they call it BitTorrent Leap, which basically it's a chat program which is anonymous, and basically it uses I think a little bit. Yeah,
I don't trust that either, because we actually started off with BitSync.
Yeah.
Which is what that messenger is based off of.
Yeah.
And if you looked at the code or the terms of service for it, it was like, by the way, our servers may have full access to everything that you transfer with this,
even though you encrypt it.
Yeah, and it's like, oh, okay, that doesn't make much sense if it's a peer-to-peer network and it's supposed to be encrypted, and what? So that's why we moved away from that and set up our own cloud server and use that going forward. But yeah, I mean, that's another thing too, is trying to use sharing sites for trying to sharing files and things like that. If you have something important, you want to make sure that you still zip and encrypt it even. I actually recently looked into trying to crack zip files, and basically the only way you have to go is a brute force method.
Yeah.
And if you do a 15, 20 character password, brute forcing that is going to be ridiculously impossible. So.
Yeah.
Proctor, did you have something to add on that, or? I thought I heard you chime in, but.
No, I'm just coughing.
Oh, okay. So yeah, that's definitely another thing to look out for and keep up with, but awesome, good stuff. And is that the Steve Gibson thing that you just posted there?
Yep. So.
Cool. Well, we've reached our 3 o'clock time. Did we have any other security topics we wanted to talk about real quick, or?
Sure. What else?
Proctor, Michael, Nick, any of y'all want to add in on anything?
I'm good, thanks.
No, I don't think so.
Yeah, I think we're good.
Sounds good. Well, I think that will wrap up today's show. If anyone has any questions about our software support, remember that's what we're here for, and we will be back to do more of that tomorrow at 4 p.m. And otherwise, hope this part of your week's been going well and the rest of your week continues to go well. And we will see you all tomorrow. And thank you, Phoenix, for joining us and talking about some of the security stuff. Glad you pointed out the VeraCrypt update. I'll definitely be checking back into that and seeing where we go from there.
Cool.
Oh yeah, let me one more link that Ian might have missed there, or the Future Tech crew, is that link that you posted about the easy to boot.
Yeah, somewhere.
I got it.
Yeah.
So if you missed that at the beginning of the show too, Ian or Future Tech crew, or anyone that joined afterwards, the link I just posted, it gives you an option to use easy to boot to Windows PE, and then use the Petya decryptor to decrypt that ransomware. So check that out, and otherwise I think you can take us on out, Proctor.
All right. Later.
Later. Bye, Internet.